Chapter 371, Icy Heart Poison. I once tried to cure you with icy heart force when you were chased by Tan Feng and mortally wounded. However, as soon as the icy heart force entered your body, it was devoured by a more powerful force. Leng Rushuang looked at Jian Wushuang and said. Jian Wushuang stared at her. Surely it was because of heavenly creation skill. At that point, I realized that your cultivation method was extraordinary. Leng Rushuang said coldly, since it can devour icy heart force, I suspect that it may also work on the icy heart poison that is formed by the icy heart force. You mean, you want me to drive the icy heart poison out of your body? Jian Wushuang frowned. Yes. Leng Rushuang nodded. The idea occurred to me when I realized you have an extraordinary cultivation method, but you were not strong enough at the time. Now that you have reached the Saint Realm, I think you can do it. What should I do? Jian Wushuang asked. Instead of answering him, Leng Rushuang extended her hand and rolled up her sleeve, showing him her white arm. There was a piece of milky white skin near her shoulder. The ghostly skin was a hideous white, just like a bone. Leng Rushuang raised her head and looked at Jian Wushuang. You just need to use your cultivation method and force it out my arm. That's it? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Of course not, Leng Rushuang said. Icy heart poison is the strongest poison known to man. An ordinary person will die if they even touch it, but you need to absorb it into your own body and then refine it, which means my icy heart poison will be transferred to you. Your cultivation method is strange. It easily devoured my icy heart force, so it should be able to refine the icy heart poison as well. However, this is just a guess, so I'm not sure. Once you begin, if you can't refine the icy heart poison, you will die. Jian Wushuang was astounded. He had just asked if it was simple, but now he realized it wasn't simple at all. He was walking the path to hell. If he was even slightly careless, or if he couldn't refine the icy heart poison, the only thing awaiting him was death. With that said, you should take this time and carefully think about whether you're willing to try. If you don't want to help me, I will not force you, Leng Rushuang said. I don't need to think about it, I'll do it. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate. Are you sure? Leng Rushuang looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. It was dangerous and no one knew what would happen. Anyone else would have taken time to think about it, but he didn't even frown. I'm sure, Jian Wushuang said with a laugh. He was confident because of his cultivation method. The heavenly creation skill had never disappointed him. Moreover, he owes Leng Rushuang a favor. Let's start. Jian Wushuang urged. Leng Rushuang took a deep look at Jian Wushuang and nodded. Jian Wushuang immediately began to circulate the heavenly creation skill. Spiritual power gathered in his palm and then spread out to cover the ghostly white skin on Leng Rushuang's arm. The instant his spiritual power came into contact with her skin, Jian Wushuang felt a white energy wiggling around like billions of worms. This white energy was the icy heart poison. What a frightening poison! Seeing the white energy, Jian Wushuang couldn't help feeling terrified. He had some minor experience with poison in the past, but compared with the icy heart poison, they were insignificant. The terrifying, ice-cold white energy in Leng Rushuang's arm was slowly spreading. Jian Wushuang believed that even a little bit of this white energy could easily freeze a Saint Realm expert and turn them into powder. It was just a tiny portion of the icy heart poison. Most of it had been sealed by Leng Rushuang. Be careful, reminded Leng Rushuang. It made Jian Wushuang feel strange. He thought of Leng Rushuang as someone who was always cold as ice. But today, perhaps because he was willing to help her, Leng Rushuang was treating him much better. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, then concentrated on the white energy. He began circulating his spiritual power according to the heavenly creation skill, while slowly moving towards the white energy. As soon as they made contact with each other, it was like his spiritual power took a bite of the white energy and swallowed it. It was only a small portion, about the size of a fingernail. However, when it entered Jian Wushuang's body, he immediately felt as if his body was frozen. For a moment, even his breathing and his heartbeat stopped. Refine. Hurry, refine it. Jian Wushuang quickly circulated the heavenly creation skill and a surge of spiritual power rushed towards the icy heart poison. Fortunately, the heavenly creation skill did not let him down. The icy heart poison was tyrannical, but the heavenly creation skill was even more domineering. Although the icy heart poison in his body fought back violently, it was quickly suppressed before eventually being refined. Did it work? Leng Rushuang stared at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes and winked at Leng Rushuang as a smile spreading across his face. A moment later, Jian Wushuang carefully extended his hand. There was a drop of ghostly white liquid floating in his palm. This was the refined icy heart poison. Jian Wushuang flipped over his other hand and took out a jade bottle, then dropped white liquid into the bottle. However, as soon as it entered the bottle, bang! The jade bottle exploded. His mouth spasmed. That jade bottle was made of spiritual jade. Not only was it valuable, it was also the highest quality bottle he owned. However, it could not endure the terrifying coldness that radiated from the poison. Use this one. Leng Rushuang flipped her hand over and took out a transparent jade bottle, then handed it to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and accepted it. This time, when he dropped the white liquid into the jade bottle, nothing happened. Seeing that, a twinkle flashed in his eyes. A good bottle. Jian Wushuang broke into a smile. Chapter 372, Setting Off to Divine Land. This was definitely something good. Since icy heart poison was virulent, the venom refined from it should be useful. Go on, said Leng Rushuang. Jian Wushuang nodded and then continued devouring and refining the icy heart poison from Leng Rushuang's arm. After gaining experience from the first time, the subsequent attempts were much easier. Half a day passed in the blink of an eye. 12 drops. After the last drop fell into the jade bottle, a smile broke out on Jian Wushuang's face. The last of the icy heart poison in Leng Rushuang's arm had finally been refined, and her arm was getting much better as well. Thank you, said Leng Rushuang, as she pulled down her sleeve. Jian Wushuang shrugged and smiled, then said, I can only refine the icy heart poison that leaked out. There is nothing I can do about the poison that is sealed. I understand. Leng Rushuang nodded, then she flipped her hand over, took out a jade slip, and said, take this. If you are in danger, break it and I will try my best to help you. Oh. Jian Wushuang was curious, but he didn't take it. The icy heart poison in my body is still leaking, so I might need to ask for your help again. I don't want you to die before then. Jian Wushuang smiled and took it. I'm leaving. Jian Wushuang didn't need to stay any longer. Since he had already refined Leng Rushuang's icy heart poison, he left the nature residence. After leaving, he went directly to the Qianzong dynasty. He would be leaving Nanyang continent to go to the Divine Land soon. Before that, he had a lot of things to do. In the imperial palace of the Qianzong dynasty, a black figure appeared in the air over the palace, surrounded by a transcendent aura. Are you Jian Wushuang? A mild voice was heard, then a red-robed man appeared. Following him was the monarch of Qianzong dynasty, Di Shi. Hong Shuzi. Jian Wushuang looked at him calmly. Jian Wushuang recognized him. He was the founding emperor of the Qianzong dynasty and the creator of the formless sword art. Di Shi. Jian Wushuang greeted him. Di Shi bowed slightly to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang destroyed Holy Emperor Palace on his own. It had spread throughout the Nanyang continent, with both Hong Shuzi and Di Shi hearing about it. The Jian Wushuang of today was no longer the callow boy of the past. Now, he was recognized as a powerful force on the Nanyang continent. Even it was them, they behaved gingerly while facing Jian Wushuang. Seniors, I have come today to ask for a favor. Would you be willing to take care of Sword Marquis Mansion for me? Jian Wushuang asked directly. Take care of Sword Marquis Mansion? Hong Shuzi realized. You're going to the Divine Land, aren't you? Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded, then he reached out and handed him an interspatial ring. The assets in the ring are for you. Hong Shuzi took it and said, smilingly, rest assured, the Qianzong dynasty will protect Sword Marquis Mansion. Thank you. If something happens that you can't handle, please send a message to the young master of the alchemy school, Wang Yuan, Jian Wushuang said. After saying that, Jian Wushuang left. Next, he went to Dragon Palace. Dragon Palace was the same as before. To Jian Wushuang's huge relief, Palace Master White, who left Dragon Palace to help him deal with Bloodfeather Tower, went back to Dragon Palace and took back her Palace Master position again after Bloodfeather Tower was destroyed. Dragon Palace was still the holy place for cultivators in Qianzhong Dynasty. In a branch of the Gladiator Arena, in Qiannan Province, a white-robed, middle-aged man was reading a thread-bound book in a study room. He was one of the 2 men in charge of the branch of Gladiator Arena in Qiannan Province. Dung! Dung! Someone knocked and then a golden-robed servant walked in. Lord Supervisor, someone sent you an interspatial ring. The golden-robed servant respectfully gave it to him. Oh! The white-robed gentleman raised his eyebrows and took the ring, but his eyes opened widely after glancing at the contents. It's a purple fire body-shaping elixir. The middle-aged man was shocked. He subconsciously touched his armless sleeve. This purple fire body-shaping elixir could reform his missing arm. Was it him? The middle-aged gentleman raised his head, showing his handsome face with a smile on his mouth. The gentleman was someone who had once helped Jian Wushuang immensely, Bai Chong. He lost an arm while holding back the assassins from Bloodfeather Tower for Jian Wushuang. Now, Jian Wushuang had repaid his kindness with a purple fire body-shaping elixir and some highly sought-after treasures for people in the Yin-Yang Void Realm. Jian Wushuang's next stop was Sword Marquis Mansion. It was in midnight and the Sword Marquis Mansion was quiet. Jian Wushuang wandered through the mansion alone, looking at the familiar surroundings. He saw the Sword Pavilion, where he once lived. He wandered around all night, alone and unnoticed, until the next morning. When the sun finally began to rise, he departed. Inside the alchemy school, Jian Wushuang, Wang Yuan, and Yang Zixuan had gathered together. Ha ha, third bro. Today we won't stop drinking until we're drunk. Wang Yuan said and laughed. Good luck. I will go there and look for you soon. Yang Zixuan looked at Jian Wushuang. Okay. Cheers. Jian Wushuang raised his glass. The 3 brothers continued to drink for 1 whole day and night. 2 days later, all the arrangements had finally been completed. At the very edge of the Nanyang continent, near the Endless Sea. Now that Sword Marquis Mansion is in order, I have nothing left to worry about. So, standing at the shore, Jian Wushuang looked out at the endless sea in front of him. The divine land. It lies at the very center of this sea. The land of experts. At its peak, the bloodline of Sword Ancestor was an overlord of the divine land. Father also went to the divine land. Jian Wushuang's eyes were full of excitement and expectation. Without any hesitation, he flew directly towards the endless sea. Chapter 373, Juku Waters. Divine Land, located at the center of the world, known as the Land of Experts. It's much more vast than the Nanyang continent, with many more experts as well. But, life here is even harder than in Nanyang. The clear sky was as pure as a porcelain plate. However, under such a clear sky, a fierce fight was taking place on a piece of land near the boundless sea. Lei Yun, take Miss Lana and escape. We'll hold them off. Run, now. A desperate roar resounded through the air. On the side the roar came from, there were 4 guards and a cyan-dressed lady, who was somewhat pretty. She seemed to possess a bit of a heroic spirit as she tightly gripped her aquamarine long sword. On the other side was a group of black-robed men, all wearing black masks. From the looks of it, there were dozens of them, all with a strong aura. Especially the leader, who was a half-saint. At this moment, 3 of the guards swallowed an elixir that could temporarily double their strength at the cost of their lives, attempting to hold off all the black-robed men. But, unfortunately, some of their enemies managed to break through and chase after the lady and the guard. You won't be able to escape. The killing intent of the half-saint leading them continued to surge forward. The lady and the guard, a burly middle-aged man with purple hair, had a grave look on their faces as they tried to escape. Damn! We're just out on an ordinary trip. Why are we being targeted? We didn't do anything to draw attention, did we? Who are these black-robed men, and who sent them? The purple-haired man roared, with a twisted expression on his face. As for the lady, though she looked pale, she managed to stay calm. Few in my family knew my whereabouts. Among those who were informed about this trip, the only one that might try to kill me is her, the lady said in a cold tone. Miss, you believe she ordered these men to kill us? The purple-haired man asked with a stunned look on his face. She is the only one who desperately wants me dead, said the lady. Damn! The purple-haired man was livid and clenched his fists. We're still far from our residence and we're slower than these guys, so we'll probably be killed before we make it back. There's no way we will survive if we keep rushing towards home. The lady pondered while glancing around. Finally, her eyes fell on the sea in the distance. Right now, there is only one way can save ourselves, the lady said with a glint of frenzy in her eyes. Uncle Lei, follow me. Having said that, the lady headed towards the sea. Miss, what do you? The purple-haired man was confused, but he quickly understood her intent. He gritted his teeth and followed her. They quickly appeared above the sea and continued rushing forward. Ahead of them, as far as they could see, was a sky covered with dark clouds, being lit up by thunder and lightning. Is that place Juku Waters? The half-saint among the black-robed men that were chasing them narrowed his eyes sharply. In this world, there were many dangerous places formed by nature. Juku Waters was one of such places in the Divine Land. But it was more like a prison than a region, as the vast Divine Land was encased by it. Any expert that wanted to leave or enter the Divine Land had to pass through Juku Waters first. However, not everyone could make it through. The Juku Waters was so dangerous that normally, an expert below the Saint Realm had no chance to break through it. They are escaping to the Juku Waters. The black-robed men's expressions all changed. The Juku Waters was a forbidden area to them since they were only in the Yang Void realm. If they entered the region, they would almost definitely die. With no chance of surviving the chase, the lady and the purple-haired man chose to test their luck in the Juku Waters. It was the best choice they could make right now. After them. Don't let them enter the waters. The half-saint ordered grimly, coldness shining in his eyes as he began moving faster. Yet, before the lady and the purple-haired man could enter the waters, something strange suddenly happened. The clouds that covered the Juku Waters began to separate at an amazing speed. The whole region seemed like it was being split from the center, along with the disappearance of the clouds and lighting. Where the clouds had parted, an unblocked path led directly to a black figure who was drawing closer slowly. This. The lady and the black-robed men were all startled. This man walked out of the waters? One black-robed man shouted. The Juku Waters are full of danger, but he safely broke through it by simply splitting the clouds. He's at least in the Saint Realm. This is the Divine Land? Jian Wushuang, the black-dressed figure carrying a long sword on his back, exited the Juku Waters. Starting from the Nanyang continent, he had crossed 3 continents and finally arrived at the Divine Land. It had taken him a year and 3 months. Standing up in the air, Jian Wushuang looked around, gaining a sense of the surroundings. The spiritual qi here is so pure. That was his first impression of the Divine Land. The spiritual power in the Divine Land was 10 times richer than the Nanyang continent. This land was indeed the core of the world. No wonder it was home to so many top experts. The resources here were incomparable to that of the Nanyang continent. In the next instant, Jian Wushuang noticed the lady and the others standing in front of him. People of the Divine Land? Looking at them, Jian Wushuang smirked. Chapter 374, The Lin Family of the Iron Saber Territory. When Jian Wushuang looked at the lady and the others, they stared back at him. This man parted the clouds and made his way here. He must be an expert of the Saint Realm, probably a newcomer from outside of the continent. If he was willing to help, there would be no need for me to risk going into the waters. An idea quickly crossed the lady's mind. She stepped forward and said to Jian Wushuang, I'm Lin Lan from the Lin family. Please help me and we shall be greatly appreciative. Her words dazed the black-robed men, and they immediately looked toward Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang frowned. His rich experience told him that the lady and the man with her were being chased. They currently had no other way to save themselves besides asking him for help. The Lin family? Jian Wushuang showed a pondering smile. Since I just arrived in this land, I will need a place to stay. Perhaps the Lin family would be a good choice. Having made up his mind, Jian Wushuang cast a cold look towards the black-robed men. Do you guys want to leave on your own, or do you want me to make you leave? Jian Wushuang said indifferently to them. Under the masks, the black-robed men's faces became gloomy. Sir, you have nothing to do with our matters. You don't necessarily have to get yourself involved. The half-saint who was leading them frowned and said, Yes, you're right. But, I simply don't like you, Jian Wushuang said directly. What he said was true. He felt disgusted by what those men were wearing. Their black robes and masks reminded him of Blood Feather Tower. They were dressed exactly the same as the assassins from Blood Feather Tower. Sir. The leader tried to say something else. However, Jian Wushuang stopped him, then lifted 3 fingers and said, I'll count to 3, leave before then or stay here forever. 1. Jian Wushuang's emotionless voice reverberated through the air. All the black-robed men were filled with rage and despair. Although they had the advantage in numbers, they still might die with a single stroke from the man standing in front of them. He had walked out of the Juku waters and was above the Saint Realm, whereas they were only at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. 2. Jian Wushuang continued. Let's go. The leading black-robed man ordered. No matter how reluctant they were, they had to leave. Thanks for your help, sir. I'll remember this. May I have your name? The lady asked after black-robed men left. Swordsman, said Jian Wushuang, still choosing to use this pseudonym. Swordsman? Lin Lan smiled and continued, if I'm not mistaken, you're from outside of the continent, and it's your first time visiting the Divine Land. You're right. Jian Wushuang nodded. The Divine Land is vast yet dangerous. Since it's your first visit, I guess you don't have a place to stay yet. If you don't mind, you can follow me to my family. Though it's not big, it still holds a place in Iron Saber territory, and you'll be our distinguished guest there. What do you say? Lin Lan asked. Oh. Jian Wushuang blinked. Her idea appealed to him. He was a newcomer in the Divine Land, and what he needed was exactly that, a place to stay while he found his footing so he could make future plans. Jian Wushuang took her advice, following her and Lei Yun to their home. As soon as they arrived, a lot of people from the Lin family came out to meet them, with a slender elder leading them. Catching sight of the elder, Jian Wushuang was a bit surprised. A Saint Realm expert? The elder came up to the gate, but when he saw Lin Lan a strange expression appeared on his face, followed by a gentle smile. Then he said, Miss, you're back. Uncle Zong, Lin Lan replied to him with a cold look. Why is it only you and Lei Yun? Where are Lei Hao and the others? The slender elder Lin Zong asked in confusion. They are. Lin Lan's expression changed a bit. We encountered an attack during our trip. They were killed by the attackers while protecting Miss, Lei Yun said in a low voice. What? Lin Zong appeared surprised and then angrily growled. Who the hell attacked you? How dare they? Uncle Zong, do you really have no idea who those guys were? Lin Lan glanced at Lin Zong and asked coldly. How could I know that? Lin Zong answered while shaking his head, then he smiled gently and continued. Luckily, you made it back safely, even though Lei Hao and the other 2 were not as lucky. After saying this, he headed inside the house. Following behind Lin Lan, Jian Wushuang sensed something fishy about the discussion, but he kept silent. Well, this friend is... Lin Zong looked toward Jian Wushuang. He is Swordsman, Lin Lan replied. Without him, I wouldn't have survived the attack. Swordsman? Never heard of him. Lin Zong raised his eyebrows. Of course, you couldn't have heard of him since he just arrived here from outside of the continent, Lin Lan explained. Oh, I see. Lin Zong smiled silently, then said, Since you've saved our miss, sir, come on in with me. Thanks, Jian Wushuang said and nodded, but snorted inwardly. A moment earlier, when Lin Zong stared at him, Jian Wushuang caught a gloomy glint in his eyes. From this, Jian Wushuang could tell that Lin Zong must have had something to do with the attack. The moment Jian Wushuang stepped into the mansion, he sensed the obscure aura of 7 experts in the Saint Realm. Plus Lin Zong, there was a total 8 Saint Realm experts in the Lin family. The divine land is indeed a place of experts. Even in an ordinary family, there are so many Saint Realm experts. Jian Wushuang gasped inwardly in admiration. Experts of the Saint Realm were rare in the Nanyang continent, they were also the strongest. But, in divine land, they were nothing special. The first family Jian Wushuang met had 8 of them, no less than the number in a top sect from Nanyang. Jian Wushuang followed Lei Yun to a yard. "Mr. Swordsman, Miss Lana told me to give you this. She thought you might need it." Lei Yun gave Jian Wushuang an interspatial ring. "Thanks." Jian Wushuang accepted the ring and began to read the information contained in it about the divine land. Chapter 375, 9 Realms and 81 Domains. It took Jian Wushuang half a day to read all the information, and he could not help gasping in admiration. The divine land really is great. Nanyang continent is no match for it. The vast divine land was full of experts in the Yin-Yang Void Realm, with a good amount of experts in the Saint Realm. Moreover, the division of the 2 places was totally different. In the Nanyang continent, there were sects and dynasties. Together they constituted the continent. However, the divine land had neither of those. Instead, it had factions led by top experts and families of different sizes. The Lin family, where Jian Wushuang was currently staying, was a medium-sized family in the Iron Saber territory. The territory was large, and Jian Wushuang reckoned that it was as vast as the whole Nanyang continent. In this territory, there were 6 large families, dozens of medium-sized families, and countless small families. In Jian Wushuang's mind, there had to be many more Saint Realm experts in the 6 large families than in a medium-sized family like the Lin family, that already possessed 8 such experts. Besides that, there was also a Supreme Lord, who could command everyone in the territory, even the 6 large families, and was said to be an expert above the peak of the Saint Realm. In the divine land, one territory is as insignificant as a small empire in Nanyang continent, but its lord is an expert above the Saint Realm. How amazing! Jian Wushuang praised it. It was clearly written in what he read. The vast divine land was filled with countless territories like the Iron Saber territory. In his eyes, even one territory in the divine land was as large as the whole Nanyang continent. Therefore, the scale of the divine land was countless times larger than the Nanyang continent. Too vast. The divine land is too damn vast. Jian Wushuang couldn't suppress his shock. In the divine land, territory was indeed the smallest scale. Above that was the domain, and above the domain was the realm. In total, there were 9 realms and 81 domains. All the domains and realms were under the top expert's control, and those people were addressed as the 9 sovereigns and the 81 marquis. Each king controlled 1 realm. Each marquis controlled 1 domain that contained dozens and even hundreds of territories. In addition to the 9 sovereigns and 81 marquis, the divine land was also home to 3 supreme experts, known as the 3 ancestors. Individually, they were known as the Holy Ancestor, the Spirit Ancestor, and the Stone Ancestor. The 3 were regarded as people of supremacy, and their factions made up the 3 hegemons. 3 ancestors. While reading through the information on the ancestors, a complex feeling filled Jian Wushuang. He was a descendant of the Sword Ancestor's bloodline. At his peak, the Sword Ancestor was on an equal footing with the 3 ancestors. His bloodline was once an overlord in the divine land, but after his death, due to an unknown reason, his bloodline lost its strongest support and was eliminated by another overlord. The other overlord was among the 3 ancestors, who are now the 3 ancestors who stand at the top in the divine land. Zhu Xiu was right. Jian Wushuang looked serious. I was the strongest person in the Nanyang continent. But in the divine land, I'm nothing. Knowing that even the lord of a territory was above the Saint Realm, he couldn't imagine how strong the 9 sovereigns and 81 marquis were. Also, how strong are the 3 ancestors? Looks like my cultivation still has a long way to go. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly but was not discouraged. No one was born to be an expert. Only difficulties and hardships could create a strong person. As Jian Wushuang continued studying the information, he heard a boom. An energy wave suddenly rose from the direction of the mansion, causing a stir in the Lin family. It's Lei Yun, standing by Jian Wushuang, was surprised when he felt the energy fluctuation. What's wrong? Jian Wushuang looked in the direction of the boom. It's Miss Lana trying to break through again. Lei Yun looked terrible. Jian Wushuang gave him a curious expression. Isn't a breakthrough considered a good thing? Even if she fails, she can gain more experience for the next breakthrough. It does no harm at all. Mr. Swordsman, you may not know this, but Miss Lana is different from others. A breakthrough is a good thing to others but a disaster to her, Lei Yun explained. A disaster? Jian Wushuang was astonished. I'll tell you later. I have to find Miss Lana first. After saying this, Lei Yun rushed towards the energy wave. Jian Wushuang stood up, but his expression was weird. A breakthrough a good chance to others but a disaster to her? I'd like to see what kind of disaster it could be. He immediately flew towards the energy wave, filled with curiosity. When he arrived above Lin Lan's yard, the energy wave had already subsided. Besides Lei Yun and him, there were also many experts and disciples of the Lin family watching as well. They stared at Lin Lan with a pitying look. Jian Wushuang looked toward Lin Lan as well, but when he saw her terrible state, he was shocked. He noticed that her aura was weakening. Yes, it was weakening. She failed the breakthrough. But, even worse than that, her aura started weakening, and her realm was regressing. When he first met her at Juku Waters, she was in the initial Yang Void realm, but due to her unsuccessful breakthrough this time, she fell back to the peak of the Yin Void realm, then the exceptional Yin Void realm, before finally stopping in the profound Yin Void realm. It was not until this moment that her breathing calmed down. An unsuccessful breakthrough results in a falling back 3 levels? Jian Wushuang was really horrified. He had never heard or seen such a thing. Unbelievable.